Do we have a quorum? Or we still need a couple more folks?
Couple more.
Yeah. My guys tell me the latest snow has fallen in the region that they can recall was December 20th. So right now, the 10-day forecast, we may have no snow, not even just snow, like a call out. We have not even had call out for black ice, which we get a lot of in November, December, freezing rain. We've had nothing.
Calm before the storm.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. We'll get dumped on in January and February.
The last 2 years, I think we've had more snow in April in terms of accumulation than we did in November.
Yeah, that's not worrisome.
No.
Hawaii getting snow, all the stuff that's happening. It's all good, right?
I think the calendar is just off by 2 months. I think that something happened. It must be a Y2K thing. The calendar has gone awry.
You slept a little late. Is that it, Chris? You slept in late?
So sorry to interrupt, guys. You do have a quorum now.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to the December 17th Transportation Committee meeting. I'll read a prepared statement. As permitted by the Governor's Disaster Declaration of December 10th, 2021, the determination has been made that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent for this committee. To ensure that the meeting is as transparent as possible, we posted the meeting materials approximately 1 week in advance. We'll provide a recording of this meeting linked on our website, and we'll take all votes by roll call. So with that, I'll ask Kama to call the roll.
Great, thank you, Chris. And I'm going to call this by agency because I'm juggling a couple screens here. So if I call your agency, please just respond with your name that you're present. So Idot Office of Intermodal Project Implementation. I believe we have Chuck. We'll come back and verify via chat. IEPA, Darwin, are you on the line? Lake County? I believe Kevin's on the line.
Yes, present.
Great, thank you. Metra, I believe Dave is on the line.
Yes, present. David Kralik.
Okay. CTA?
Yes, present. Mike Connolly.
Thank you, Mike. Federal Highway?
Good morning, present.
Thanks, John. Cmap, Doug?
Present.
FTA?
Oh, Tony Green, present.
Thank you, Tony. Class 1 railroads? Private providers? RTA?
Good morning, present.
Thanks, Jessica. McHenry County?
Present. John Paul Liepla.
IDOT Office of Planning and Programming. Tom Kelso's having audio issues, but he did chat that he's present. Kendall County?
Present.
Thank you, Jackie. Will County?
Yes, Christina Kapkowski's here.
Thank you. Pace?
Yes, present. Eric Llewellyn.
Great. Southeast Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission?
Present. Christopher Hebert.
Thank you. Cook County Department of Transportation?
Yes, Eva De Laurentiis, present on behalf of Tara Orban.
Thanks, Eva. The Bicycle Pedestrian Task Force, Jessica?
Yep, here, Jessica Ortega.
Great. CNT?
Yes, Heidi Persad here.
Thanks, Heidi. IDOT District 1 Highways? I think we were not expecting them today. King County?
Tom Rickard, present.
Thanks, Tom. Council mayors.
Good morning, Mayor Rockingham present.
Okay. CDOT. Don't see Big yet. DuPage County.
Chris Snyder, present.
Representing universities, Joe Schofer.
Here.
PS Siraj. Okay. Northwestern Indiana. Don't see anyone. NPC.
Audrey Winnings here.
Thank you, Audrey. And wrapping up with the tollway.
Good morning, present.
Thank you, Rocco.
All right, so we do have a quorum. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 2. Agenda changes and announcement. I don't believe there's any agenda changes. Are there any announcements that anybody wants to share? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 19th, 2021.
Motion, Hector Sue.
Second, Tom Rickard.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Tom. Are there any comments, questions, changes, edits? None? Okay, then we'll call the roll. Kama?
Thank you. Chuck Abraham.
Aye.
Kevin Carrier.
Aye.
Dave Kralik.
Aye.
Mike Connolly.
Aye.
Doug Ferguson.
Aye.
Jessica Hector Sue.
Aye.
John Paul Diepla.
Aye.
Tom Kelso. We'll check chat. Jackie Forbes.
Aye.
Christina Kupkowski.
Aye.
Eric Llewellyn.
Aye.
Chris Hebert.
Aye.
Eva De Laurentiis.
Aye.
Jessica Ortega.
Aye.
Heidi Prasad.
Aye.
Tom Rickard.
Aye.
Mayor Rockingham.
Aye.
Joe Schofer.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Chris Snyder.
Aye.
Audrey Wenning.
Aye.
And Rocco Zucchero.
Yes.
All right, we did get an aye from Tom Kelso in the chat.
All right, so
Motion carries.
it's unanimous. The motion carries. Thank you, Kama. We'll move on to agenda item 4, committee reports. We'll ask that Executive Director Almond give us an update on the board and other agency activities. So I'll turn it over to you, Erin.
Thanks so much. First, let me just start off by thanking Chris for, I think it's been 3 years of service as transportation chair. And as we were noting before we started here, I think Chris, you've really helped lead us through the transition from transportation committee being in person to fully virtual. And for that, again, we appreciate you. And I know, again, that you expressed your appreciation of our team too. And I think this committee too has been very successful in working together collaboratively. And we hope to get back together at some point in time, but that just isn't in the cards at the moment here. So what'll happen next is, as typical of this committee, is the vice chair will move up to chair, but we do need the MPO policy committee to vote and approve that. So their next meeting is January 13th, I believe, where we would anticipate that they would make a recommendation that Jessica Hector Sue fill Chris's shoes. But I know that she'll be super successful as the next chair. And then we will be talking with members about the next vice chair here before that happens here, because they'll recommend that as well. Typically, we rotate between transit and counties and other partners here too. So I know that our staff, Doug and Kama and the TIP team are talking to folks, or will be talking to folks shortly here. I just wanted to touch on a little bit about the infrastructure bill and what we've been talking about here at Cmap. We recognize that there's a whole lot of unknowns that are coming, but there are some knowns. I think we've been thinking about the infrastructure bill in sort of three categories, right? One is like, what are the substantive policy changes that the bill has, that's changed in the bill? And then what are those core programs? And then what are the competitive programs here? So, the policy changes, we're running point internally and getting our subject matter experts engaged, as I imagine many of your associations and your agencies are as well, to really understand what we need to do as a regional agency. There's some language about, what housing is linked to transportation is in the metropolitan planning funds that we get for the region. There's also a set aside or saying that the region needs to spend 2.5% of their funds on active transportation and complete streets. So some of that is still a little fuzzy, and we're trying to wrap our arms around what that could mean for the region. But again, all good stuff, and I think all stuff in line with what we are interested in the region here. I know Rocco noted too last time that we don't want to miss any opportunities. So again, that's really what we've been trying to wrap our brains around, and I think what we'd like to continue to have conversations with Transportation Committee about in the coming months here. So many of you may be aware, but in terms of the core programs, there are 4 core programs that are new: carbon reduction program, the Protect program, which is really resiliency focused. The unique thing there is that if you have a regional resiliency plan or a state resiliency plan, and then you have measures that you're using to evaluate projects that meet your resiliency goals, you can get up to a 10% discount on the local match needed for projects that achieve those goals. So again, we don't have sort of a regional resiliency plan in place at this point in time, but it is something that I think would help us support our ONTO 2050 goals and initiatives, and we're working on a vulnerability index. So I think that is something that we, of course, want to engage you all on and how we make that happen. Again, the rules still aren't quite clear on what qualifies as a regional resiliency plan. So does our 2050 plan qualify? Does the state's all hazards plan qualify? And how do we sort of suss all that out are things that are top of mind for us. So carbon reduction program, the Protect Resiliency program, there's a bridge program as well, and an EV charging program too. So those are all the core programs. I think we are trying to talk with, we think there's an opportunity for us to be able to program the carbon reduction program, much like we program Cmap funds in our region here. So we will continue to talk with the Department of Transportation, but we might want to talk to counties and also to councils of governments as well about helping support some of these policies that the state then will be making in terms of the distribution of those funds for programming. And then the third bucket, so policy, core, third bucket's competitive, right? And this is really where I think there's a huge opportunity for us to align and coordinate as a region to be more successful in bringing home funding from these competitive programs. So again, we're starting to look at the projects in the 2050 plan that we already have programmed, identifying where those projects might line up with the competitive, any one of the 23 new competitive programs, and really have thoughtful discussions here about, can we prioritize, what can we come together on a region on to say, we aren't going to compete county versus county, city versus city, and really show the feds that we have a whole lot of good stuff lined up for that. So that is coming in the coming months. I know that there's a lot of feedback that USDOT is looking for right now in terms of how to make this program work. But again, I think we'd like to reserve time on this agenda to continue those discussions in the new year and really make sure that we have a thoughtful approach to what it is we're doing here in the region, what we're applying for competitively and otherwise. So with that, I will, the board hasn't met, did not meet in December. We'll meet again in January. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Erin, and thank you for the acknowledgement of my service as committee chair. I think I'm the only committee chair that saw both a state capital bill and a federal bill. So I don't know what that says, but I think I think that says a lot about me. I'm kidding. So anyway, quick question, maybe it's too early. to know. So, I mean, there's with the federal bill, obviously a large increase. Traditionally, at the state level, the monies that, formula funds that flow to the state and that are sub-allocated to the region or regions, the MPOs, is the increase subject to discussion, or do we expect those that, if we got $100 and the pot went up 10%, that the region would get 10% more, or is some of that a dialogue between the MPOs and the state of Illinois about the increase? Do you know?
So we had our coordinating MPO meeting yesterday. We talked a little bit about this, but it was clear to me that Cmap, this region, does things a little bit differently because we do get 18.92% of the core programs. So I think there are some of those core programs, the 4 new ones, that it would make sense for us to get the 18.92% split. But I think on that carbon reduction program specifically, I think it says something like 65% of those funds that go to the state should be programmed in the urbanized area. That's an opportunity, I think, for us to come together and say, hey, we're successful in programming air quality improvement funds in this region, like the CMAC program, and that we should be the ones who program that for this region most efficiently. So I think that's one point. And then on that protect one, I think there's a little bit of room for negotiation where, well, I would like to see room for negotiation. And I would hope that as we get into the details of that program too, that this committee would help sort of help us figure out how to make that ask. So.
Okay. And do we know how quickly those funds, I'm thinking like many of the councils and mayors have their, I think, STP call this January, and whether that will reflect a change or an increase in marks, or is that going to come later because we're still catching up with a lot of things at the state, but mostly the federal level?
So because the budget, the obligation authority and the appropriations for these funds will come through when there's a big federal budget passed. And right now, because we only have the short term, I forget what the right word is, but this short-term extensions of the budget to make sure that the debt ceiling doesn't, we don't go over that. The funding for these new programs aren't necessarily appropriated yet. So it probably will be until Congress passes a full budget before we start seeing these funds, but sooner rather than I think some of the grant programs.
Right. Okay. Are there any other questions of Aaron? I'm not seeing any, so thank you all. Aaron, thank you for the update. We'll move on to agenda item 5, TIP amendments. I'll turn that over to Russell.
All right, I'm ready to go. Okay. Included in your packet today is a memo detailing the 79 TIP changes contained in formal TIP Amendment 22-02 and the 155 TIP changes contained in Administrative Amendments 22-02.1 and 22-02.2. As seen in the memo, formal amendments resulted in an increase of $386.4 million in total project costs for all prior, current, and future years. About 2/3 of that increase can be attributed to changes submitted by CTA and Metra. Administrative amendments added $398.2 million to the TIP in all prior, current, and future years, almost all of which was the result of CTA adding bond payments in future years. The net change for total cost in the TIP for all amendments resulted in $784.6 million being added to the TIP in prior, current, and future years. As shown in the memo, scope changes and cost changes comprised most of the formal changes. The administrative amendments were more evenly distributed amongst advanced construction conversion changes, and cost changes. The amendments, along with the memo, were posted for committee and public review. At this time, we request approval of the formal TIP amendment 22-02 is requested, and I can answer any questions if there are any at this time.
Thank you, Russell. Are there any questions for Russell? Seeing none. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve TIP amendment 22-02.
So moved. Mike Conley, CTA.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
Second by Mayor Rockingham.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have a motion and a second. There was no questions, so I will ask Cameron to take the roll.
Thank you, Chris. Chuck Abraham,
Aye.
Kevin Carrier,
Aye.
Dave Kralik.
Aye.
Mike Connolly,
Aye.
Doug Ferguson,
Aye.
Dr. Sue,
Aye.
Tom Paladipla,
Aye.
Tom Kelso. We'll check chat. Jackie Forbes. Christina Kupkowski,
Aye.
Eric Llewellyn,
Aye.
Chris Hebert,
Aye.
Ava De Laurentiis,
Aye.
Heidi Prasad,
Aye.
Tom Rickert,
Aye.
Mayor Rockingham,
Aye.
Joe Schofer,
Aye.
Chris Snyder,
Aye.
Audrey Wenning,
Aye.
Rocco Zucchero,
Yes.
and Jessica Ortega. I apologize, I skipped you.
Aye.
And Tom Kelso did confirm in the chat.
Okay, so the motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 5.2.
Still me.
Same, yes, Russell. So Russell provide an overview of the conformity analysis and corresponding TIP amendment. So I'll turn it over to Russell.
Okay. Included in your packet today is also the ONTO 2050 TIP conformity analysis and TIP amendment 22-03. The Cmap region is a non-attainment area for ozone, thus we are required to demonstrate that projects in the TIP conform to the motor vehicle emissions budget for our area through a regional emissions analysis of transportation projects in the TIP. Specifically, projects in the TIP subject to air quality analysis requirements demonstrate when modeled that the region does not exceed our motor vehicle emissions budget, which is shown near the end of the memo in your packet. The memo and the list of projects that are new or had changes are subject to a 30-day public comment period that ended on December 7th. Cmap received no comments. At this time, staff requests the committee recommend approval of the semi-annual ONTO 2050 TIP conformity analysis and TIP amendment 22-03 to the Cmap board and MPO policy committee as presented. And if there are any questions, I can answer them at this time.
Okay, thank you, Russell. Any questions? Everybody must be on holiday already. So, okay, so seeing no questions, I will entertain a motion to approve TIP amendment 22-03 and the ONTO 2050 TIP conformity analysis for recommendation to the MPO policy committee and CMAP board. Looking for a motion.
Motion, Lake County.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there a second?
Forbes, second.
Thank you, Jackie. So we have a motion and a second. There were no questions, so I'll ask Kama to read the roll.
All right, Chuck Abraham,
Aye.
Kevin Carrier,
Aye.
Dave Kralik,
Aye.
Mike Connolly,
Aye.
Doug Ferguson,
Aye.
Jessica Hector Sue,
Aye.
John Paul Diepla,
Aye.
Tom Kelso, Jackie Forbes,
Aye.
Christina Kupkowski,
Aye.
Eric Llewellyn,
Aye.
Chris Hebert,
Aye.
thank you, Chris. Eva De Laurentiis,
Aye.
Jessica Ortega,
Aye.
Heidi Prasad,
Aye.
Tom Rickert,
Aye.
Mayor Rockingham,
Aye.
Joe Schofer,
Aye.
Chris Snyder,
Aye.
Audrey Wenning,
Aye.
Rocco Zucchero,
Yes.
and Tom
I
Kelso
swear
did
to
vote
God.
yes in chat.
I got enough time to go make myself a cup of coffee before it gets to the Z's.
Okay, so thank you, Kama. The motion passes. So now we'll move on to agenda item 6. It's the On2 2050 update. We'll ask that Lindsay give an update presentation on the financial plan for the On2 2050 plan update and the draft baseline forecast. So I'll turn that over to Lindsay. Here we go.
Good morning. I'm currently trying to determine if I am sharing my screen. I am sharing my screen. Great. And I'm not sharing my Outlook calendar. Good. Okay. Well, I am here today to share an update on the On2 2050 financial plan for transportation development. And this is the exercise we do every 4 years where we look at how much in terms of financial resources we are going to have over the long range planning period, and then how are we going to allocate those funds across different categories, operating and maintaining the system, improving the system to meet asset condition targets, enhancing our system, and then expanding our system through regionally significant projects. And we've been working for about the past 6 months on developing what we call our baseline forecast, looking at how much do we have in terms of existing revenue sources, and then how much is it going to cost to maintain and operate the system as it is today in the condition it's in today. And I wanted to thank many of our partners, including many of you who've helped us with this forecast and really help by providing expertise on developing the assumptions. So when we were creating the forecast, we realized that a lot has happened since we did this 4 years ago, and all these developments really affected the forecast. First of all, the condition of the system has actually declined since the adoption of On2 2050. And most recent data available, just as an example, indicate that currently about a little less than 86% of bridge deck area in the region are in acceptable condition. And this is a decline from 2016 when it was at nearly 91%. Similarly, fewer transit assets overall are in a state of good repair. You can see on this chart, we have a few different asset types here. You can see on the top row, buses have improved, but otherwise, for the most part, things are looking a bit worse than they were a few years ago. And all these metrics are really used to develop the baseline forecast because we're looking at how much it's going to cost to maintain the system in the condition it's in today. And a system in worse condition costs less to maintain in that condition, but this also means that we really need to work to allocate more funding towards meeting the region's system condition targets. And conveniently, our region has also done a lot of work over the past few years on asset management, and this really makes us pretty well positioned to make some of those necessary investments to meet our asset condition targets. And it also means we're in a pretty good position to use some of our new federal money because of these plans. Over the past few years, we've had several transportation agencies create asset management plans. And I also wanted to just highlight Cmap's work on this. We've partnered with 60 municipalities to create pavement management plans over the past few years. And at the same time, we've also seen revenues increase at the federal, state, and local levels. Right after On2 2050 was approved, Rebuild Illinois was enacted at the state level, and that included an increase to the state motor fuel tax, as was recommended in On2 2050, and so that revenue is now included in our base forecast. It also provided for the ability of more municipalities in the region to impose their own local option motor fuel taxes, and it expanded the ability of counties to do the same. And as a result, for one, we have all authorized collar counties imposing motor fuel taxes in the region, and those will bolster transportation investments. And we also have an additional 28 municipalities in Cook County that are doing the same. And then, of course, more recently, we have the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act at the federal level, and that's going to provide for significant increases in federal funding for years to come. And based on the information we have today, that really significantly increased the revenue forecast. Something else that happened in the past 4 years, a pandemic. So that also impacted the revenue forecasts. For one, toll revenue is assumed to really start out at a lower level than had been previously assumed in the last forecast. And then same with transit fare revenue. That will be starting out at a lower than anticipated point than the original N22050 forecast. And that's even with assuming ridership will eventually return to prior levels. Should ridership and the resulting fare revenue not substantially return to prior levels by the beginning of the planning period, it's assumed in the forecast that fare revenue will be supplemented by other federal or state operating support. So all these factors and many more factors that are discussed in the memo in your packets went into developing these draft baseline forecasts. And this is a summary of the forecast. Based on what we know now, the region is going to have $60 billion more in revenue under existing sources over the 28-year planning horizon to operate the system, administer the system, and maintain it in its current condition. Keep in mind that particularly with the federal revenues, this is all based on the information we have today, which isn't as much as we'd like. And over the next few months, we hope to get more information on the funding coming from Idot, and we will plan to revise the forecast accordingly. For those of you who haven't been around for some of the past plans, you may not know that this is somewhat of a departure from our past baseline forecasts. In the past, we've had the situation where our forecasted revenues under existing sources could not even meet baseline expenditures. So while this is a positive development, there are many other investment priorities that remain for these funds beyond just operating and maintaining the system in its current condition. And really to try and meet some of those investment priorities, such as our asset condition targets, fiscally constraining enhancements to the system, and then also constraining expansions to the system, and also really ensuring that we're going to have sufficient operational funding over the next 30 years. We're going to need to continue to prioritize some of the existing N22050 recommendations for new and innovative revenue sources. Right now, we're currently working on those, and we will be sharing a draft of, well, everything you saw today, but then also those reasonably expected revenue sources to the MPO Policy Committee in January. We're also working right now on asset condition targets and then also on regionally significant projects. And over the coming months, we'll be sharing draft allocations to those investment priorities with you all. Given the decline in condition that I shared with you earlier on in the presentation, it's going to be particularly important to ensure that we are allocating resources towards improving system condition. Anyway, there's a lot more detail on the forecast in the memo in your packet, and I'd be happy to take any feedback you have on the forecast or any questions you have. I'm also happy to talk with any of you offline about this in the coming weeks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. A quick question or two. For local agencies, you noted that all of us now impose some type of what we'll call county option or local gas tax. Part of Rebuild Illinois, in addition to that, also included $1.5 billion in grants to local agencies. Is that $1.5 billion, which I think 2/3 of that have already been kind of receded to or distributed to local agencies? Is that part of the $2.4 billion kind of local funds, or is that need to be added?
Yeah, that is incorporated into the state capital programs category.
Okay.
So that is where we assume revenue coming from the state in terms of bond funds to various agencies. Not only does it include the funds, and I should also add, it's not that full amount. It's only a portion of that amount because the forecast doesn't start until 2023. But we also assume more capital programs over the planning period in the baseline forecast.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions of Lindsay?
Yeah, hi, this is Audrey from MPC.
Hi.
Hi, Lindsay, thanks for this. I'm wondering if there is a list of projects that you could share that's associated with your assumptions. For example, using the RTA capital optimization tool, is there a list of projects that are assumed to be included in these capital expenditures that you could share with the group?
Good. With regard to the the transit capital maintenance forecast, I would have to get back to you on that. We received that data. We didn't do that analysis ourselves, and we worked with the RTA to do that analysis. So I can get back to you to let you know whether or not there are specific projects that are incorporated in there. And I would also say on the roadway side, there are, I believe, some projects that were assumed to occur in the roadway capital maintenance forecast. And what those specifically are, I can share with you as well.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Lindsay, this is Jessica. I'm happy to speak to the transit piece a little bit. So yeah, Audrey, yeah, we used our capital optimization and support to our cost model that we've had for many years that we built with the service boards. And the way that that's structured is that it basically has every single asset in all of the transit system in there, and it sort of prioritizes them based on the criteria that's in there. So it doesn't produce a list of projects per se in the way that the service boards would actually build and do something, but it has a list of prioritized assets that would be in line to be replaced, if that makes sense. So that's how we typically do these projections for Cmap. But we're happy to talk more with you if you want to learn more.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Audrey.
Hey,
Thank
Lindsay,
you, Jessica. Go on.
Hey, I just want to say a couple things. Thanks. I always appreciate the updates, and yeah, you're dead on where we are with the totally. Our revenues are definitely recovering. They're down. We're just starting from a lower baseline, but we continue to recover. So that's been a positive. I just got out of a traffic and revenue meeting prior to this. But you mentioned it. I wanted to call it out and say thanks for Cmap's efforts on the pavement management plan. I do some volunteer work in our local community, and you called out the 61 communities that are doing the pavement management plan. I have to say this for my particular community, it's been very helpful to see where we are and really put together that long-term pavement management plan and figure out and kind of push our board. A lot of transition at the local board level. Mayor Rockingham, you are the rock, but we don't. Where I live, we have a constant turnover, yeah, so it's been really helpful to see the efforts that went through there, and again helped our community allocate the limited dollars that we have, understanding we're going to take a hit financially, but kind of push the board to make the right decisions now for long term. So I want to acknowledge Cmap staff. I think it's Todd Schmidt who does that, and AECOM and ARA. They did a very good job with the presentation. Yeah, very helpful at the local level, at the extreme local level, people that maybe not be engaged here. So again, just want to say thanks and good job on that overall effort.
Thank you. That's great to hear. And yeah, we think these pavement management plans are valuable too.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Rickard here.
Hey, Tom.
I was just kind of wondering, what the process would be in considering the regionally significant projects. Like you said, this is the first time we've had this type of situation. We usually spent previous iterations trying to whittle down the regionally significant projects just to make sure that we were fiscally constrained. Now we have a situation where we might be able to expand some of that, but we also want to be very careful. I mean, as you stated, we have some other priorities too that need to be looked at, as well as we need to address some of these conditions that are out there. So I was just kind of wondering what some of the next steps might be. I know that there's some projects that the region as a whole might be very cautious about even bringing into the program.
So my understanding is right now we are working on evaluating the regionally significant projects that we received from the different project implementers. In terms of the next steps in the process, I believe that this committee will be receiving more information at their next meeting, although I would be happy for someone else to add on any other information that we may have. Doug, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, there may be a little bit of just the way the meetings are set up, where we're talking with MPO Policy Committee before this meeting, just with sharing where we're at with the RSP evaluations. But our plan still is to have the evaluations completed by the end of February, with anticipation of going out for a long-term or for public comment in the summertime. So. There will be more information coming out on what was submitted and also the analysis.
If I could just pop in for 1 second here too. I do know that the AASHTO Transportation Policy Forum met yesterday and had a conversation about sort of priorities related to the new funds in the infrastructure bill that was passed. And they seem to have a pretty strong opinion that, you know, undertaking maintenance and modernization and really bringing our system up to a state of good repair was going to take priority over the expansion of the system here, which is something that I think, you know, in a region as old as ours with infrastructure that's pretty constrained already is something that we prioritize in our 2050 plan here. But you know, it's just wanted to note that I saw that come through the wire yesterday. They were that FHWA was putting through some policies that were aligned with our 2050 goals in terms of how we take care of our existing system.
So then, Lindsay, next steps. So today was the baseline forecast, and then we'll be getting refinements of this. As maybe the federal bill kind of flushes out, so to speak. And then the target for bringing something to this committee, I guess, would be to recommend a policy, kind of the fiscal constraint.
So in February, we can definitely bring back to you all the latest updates on this forecast, yes, and but sooner we'll be bringing this to the MPO Policy Committee with the reasonably expected revenues. With regard to the February meeting, I am not sure that at that point, and maybe someone else can answer this, whether or not that would be a meeting where we're bringing the allocations, though. That would depend on the on where we are with the regionally significant projects, I believe.
Okay.
In terms of timeline, yeah, Doug, if you have any further information, though, feel free to jump in.
It's really going to be determined by how far we are in the evaluation process. It's going to be dependent on where we're at with that and if we've have that wrapped up or not.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Lindsay or Doug? Seeing none? Okay. Well, thank you for the update, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Hearing back from you after first quarter or so of next year. We'll move on to item 7, which are the 2022 highway safety targets. So I think Todd is on the line and he'll give us an update on the 22 targets. So I'll turn it over to Todd.
Great, thank you. And thank you for the shout out, Rocco, on the pavement management plans. Great. Today, staff is requesting that the Transportation Committee recommend approval of Idot's highway safety targets to the Cmap Board and MPO Policy Committee. I'm going to go over a little background of the safety targets, go over into the safety targets, then talk about the annual assessment, and then how we're integrating it into our work. The highway safety targets are part of the Transportation Performance Management, or TPM, which are intended to track national goals at the state and regional level. TPM requires state DOTs and MPOs to set a series of performance targets and track the progress toward achieving those targets. By implementing TPM, agencies will be required to track the system performance over time, which allows them to evaluate the effectiveness of policies, plans, and programs in meeting their targets. The safety performance measures track progress toward the long-term goal of eliminating traffic-related fatalities and serious injuries. The safety performance measures are the only TPM-related targets that are set annually and for all public roads. The other TPM targets are set every 2 to 4 years and are focused on the national highway system. The MPO can set its own targets or agree to support the state's targets. This will be the 5th year of setting highway safety targets, and we have supported the state's targets the past 4 years. Going a little faster than I planned, so I'll just skip to our next slide. The table on the slide shows the 5-year average for the highway safety performance measures from 2016 to 2020 and IDOT's 2022 highway safety targets. Cmap share is included under the state's numbers. IDOT uses a policy-based 2% annual reduction or 5-year average trend line to set its targets. This year, IDOT used the 2% annual reduction and the 5-year average for all 5 targets. The state and Cmap region has experienced an increase in fatalities and rate of fatalities over the last 5 years. On the other hand, the number of serious injuries and the rate of serious injuries has been decreasing over the last 5 years. The number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries were increasing the last few years, but there was a drop in the 2016 to 2020 average for both the state and the region. Next slide, please.
Todd, I think you might be muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Each year, FHWA evaluates whether states have met or made significant progress towards meeting their targets. FHWA will consider states to comply if they met their targets or improved from the baseline at least 4 of the 5 required performance targets. The baseline is defined as the 5-year average ending with a year prior to the establishment of targets. So, for example, the 2019 targets for the baseline would be the 2013 to 2017 5-year average. We did not meet or make significant progress towards meeting the targets, so IDOT will be required to use all of its HSIP funds for safety projects, and they must develop an HSIP implementation plan to show how they are going to achieve the targets in the future. In 2019, we did not meet the target or do better than the baseline for the number and rate of fatalities and non-motorized serious fatalities and serious injuries. However, the 2 serious injury targets were met. Next slide, please. Cmap has started a number of safety initiatives over the last couple of years to help achieve our safety targets and make the roadways safer for all users. The Safety Action Agenda is a multi-year effort to develop regional strategy for improving roadway safety. Cmap staff formed a resource group to help guide this work and is currently working on 2 policy papers, one on speed management and the second on bicycle and pedestrian safety. Other activities under the Safety Action Agenda include outreach activities, such as the recently released video on pedestrian safety highlighted in last week's Cmap weekly update email. Cmap's LTA program has expanded its focus on traffic safety by including traffic safety specific project types in its call for projects. A local road safety plan provides a framework for identifying, analyzing, and prioritizing roadway safety improvements. Cmap is wrapping up its first local road safety plan with the Village of Flossmoor later this winter. The Flossmoor Local Road Safety Plan was developed through stakeholder engagement, collaboration, and data analysis to tailor it to the local safety issues on all the roads in the community. Furthermore, the Cmap LTA program just awarded and kicked off 3 communities with site-specific safety action plans for 4 intersections and 1 corridor. This past year, Cmap applied for and was awarded a State Planning or Research Grant, or SPR Grant, to take a deep dive into speeding-related crashes and identify problem locations. The SPR grant includes funding to purchase data and hire a consultant to analyze regional vehicle speed data to identify corridors where vehicle speed issues coincide with high rates of crashes. In addition to purchasing and analyzing the speed data, the SPR grant will allow Cmap to purchase equipment that can track vehicle speed through a corridor. This equipment, along with crash data, will be used to capture the impact of countermeasures or policies implemented along that corridor. Cmap continues to include traffic safety and program and project evaluations. Both CMAC and STP shared fund programs incorporate safety into their project evaluations. While these efforts will continue and ideally expand, making a significant impact on deaths and serious injuries requires more work. Cmap will continue to work with its partners to explore new avenues to address traffic safety through its planning and programming activities. Next slide, please. Following consideration by the Transportation Committee, Cmap staff requests approval of the recommended 2022 highway safety targets. Next, the targets will be presented to the Cmap Board and MPO Policy Committee for at their January meeting for approval. With that, thank you. And I believe Vicki, who is heading up our safety action agenda item, is also on the call, so we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Todd. And I know that some of the work by Cmap really, I think, evolved through this committee and recognizing the trends that we were seeing the last couple of years. So I know that Vicki and Cmap staff are working toward, a number of initiatives to address various things at the regional level to hopefully combat and reduce those fatal accidents. I was talking earlier, Todd, I don't think you were in that conversation. I'm just curious, certainly the trend in the serious going down is favorable. Obviously the fatalities are going in the wrong direction. Do you know what defines a serious accident? I'm just curious. Is it an ambulance shows up on the job, not job site, God, I hope not, to an incident and that becomes a serious?
Yeah, I believe it's if a person is incapacitated and is not able to go leave the crash scene on their own will. So they have to have an ambulance and come take them away.
Okay. Are there any questions for either Todd or, again, Vicki, I think is available to us?
Yeah, hi, this is Audrey from MPC. I just had a comment and a question. So I want to just acknowledge the work that Cmap is doing with its ad hoc committee and the enhancements to its processes. I really appreciate that and look forward to continued work in that area. But I think we need to recognize that the majority of our investments in this region occur outside the funds that Cmap programs. And we need to continue to ask what we're going to be doing differently. When we set targets, these are policy targets, these are aspirational targets, and they are not calculated based on any forecast of what will occur differently in terms of how we're building and operating our roads. And so I think we need to continue to have a conversation about how we are going to be doing that differently. So I'm wondering if we could ask Idot, I know the District 1 representative is not here today, but perhaps ask Idot to come to this body and present on its approach to complete streets. We know via the ad hoc committee that we're prioritizing bicycles, pedestrians, and managing speeds. So that's essentially complete streets. And also perhaps the plan that they're required to develop as a result of not meeting their targets, the HSIP plan, that implementation plan that they need to do. I think we just need to understand how we're going to be doing things differently and really accelerating implementation of complete streets, even as we modernize and maintain. Every time we touch a road, that there's a chance to make it better, and that we need to do things differently. Even with all these resources coming to us, we need to make sure we're not rebuilding the same way that we have our system now, given that we have over 1,000 people dying in the state every year. So I'm just hoping we can continue to engage with the implementers on how we're changing our the way we're developing our roads, and engage in that conversation and continue to evolve.
Thank you, Audrey. I can't speak for all counties or local agencies. I do know that, I can say that whenever we do a project, safety is always at the forefront, even basic maintenance. We've done a lot of conversions to, obviously there's the 8A transition plans, there's countdown pedestrian signals that provide relief and benefit to users. So there's a lot of things I think are done that may not make it to, this level. I remember years ago when I was in planning, we used to rely on FHWA guidance, and maybe some of that's still available, that would talk about the projected benefit of doing certain improvements, and maybe resurrecting that or determining whether that document is still current, so that as we look at what we would just say day-to-day maintenance, when we do those, we can at least acknowledge that the projects we're implementing are, moving the goalpost, moving toward a safer environment, even just the basic everyday things we do. So I know there was something out there, the benefits of a left turn lane, the benefits of coordinating signals, the benefits of a lot of elements, and so maybe some of that could come forward to the resources group, for information that agencies can begin to kind of score their projects, basic maintenance. Leah.
Chris, thanks. So I wanted to recognize what Audrey said and say that I agree. I think that would be great to have Idot come and present on some of the specific initiatives that they're looking at with respect to Idot jurisdiction roadways. A lot of the highways, we think of highways as like, separated roadways, but there are a lot of highways within city limits too, or Idot jurisdiction roadways that I think are part of this. And there's a lot of opportunities there to curtail speed. And to me, when I look at this data, I see, the increase in fatalities as being directly related to that. And I don't know, for certain if that link has been substantiated, but I know that, given the rates of fatalities with high speed interactions, particularly with vulnerable road users, like Audrey was suggesting, bicyclists and pedestrians, I think it would be really good to think a little bit about how we're kind of going above and beyond some of the things like, the coordinated signal pieces and other things that really look at free flow traffic, and think more about how we create roadways and investments that are safe for the kind of vulnerable users that we're talking about. So I would like to say I also appreciate the work Cmap has done here and thank them for that, and think that we have a lot of work to do. That's what I see in this data, and I would also be interested in this Idot presentation. We can make that happen.
Yeah, is that something we can communicate to the district and request of the district to kind of communicate that to Springfield and see what they're working on, what they can provide, to this group at a future committee meeting.
Yeah, we'll try to set something up with Idot staff to come back.
Okay.
Chris, if I could, Kevin with Lake County too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just adding on to, I think, agreeing with all those, the comments before, and just kind of pass along just internally at Lake County DOT with our programming folks too. I know we've bounced around from year to year on what metrics to have in for safety projects and how to select projects even on our own system to put in our program. Whether it's looking at just fatal and serious injury, or other metrics that were out there like crash prediction tools and all that kind of stuff. So I think having maybe Idot come in and maybe there's some stuff out there that we're not aware of, but it's exciting to hear with the SPR grant fund too, if Cmap is working on, or if we can work on metrics for like the high speeds correlation with crashes and things like that, just to help us kind of program and select projects better too. So if it's stuff that's out there current today, it'd be something we're not aware of, or creating some new metrics or things like that. But that's one thing, trying to pick some of these projects is something that we've kind of bounced around on what's the appropriate or the best way to do that from a programming standpoint too. But I think we're at a good opportunity. We got some money to spend here, maybe with the safety task force that Cmap's leading up, which has been really great so far. Maybe there's an opportunity to rethink how we do things and throw some money at it and try to reverse these trends here.
Thank you, Kevin. So this is what happens to an agency that doesn't show up to a meeting. They have to come back and present. But I think it's no pun intended. I think it's worthwhile to have IDOT come and say what they're looking at, because much of their system mirrors, at least the county system, arterials and stuff like that many of the counties represented here also own, operate, maintain, and so it would be beneficial to see what they're doing at that level that we could piggyback on and implement. I will swear by speed feedback signs. We've implemented them where we've had fatalities, lighting, the corrugated medians that nobody likes because of the noise, but we haven't had a fatality in some critical areas in years. And so those simple things, thousands of dollars for a speed feedback sign, go a long, long way. Mr. Rickert.
Yeah, I just want to add on to what Kevin was saying, that, there's a lot more education that can go on, a lot more understanding of the concerns and the issues that are out there. I think, again, Cmap and this group here, we've gone a long ways just in the last few years in trying to move into these issues. I still like to try to figure out a way to make it more comprehensive as far as all the agencies that are involved. I know we had the ad hoc group in the past in these meetings. I've kind of said I'd really like to understand more and know when these meetings are, and perhaps even participate. And I haven't really heard a whole lot yet on how to do that. On our end, we're trying to do as much as we can to kind of step into this and start addressing things. We have hired safety staff internally now, and we've actually implemented a safety group within our agency where we meet on a regular basis to deal with concerns and issues. At the same time, we still also, as Kevin was mentioning, we still really want to understand some of the national level approaches to some of these concerns, and Cmap staff has reached out to me in the last couple months, and that's been encouraging. I just want to continue to step into this more. I believe all of us feel this is a high priority for the region.
I think I've mentioned this at previous meetings. 4 counties in the state of Illinois, one of them being DuPage, and 8 counties nationally, 4 in Illinois, 4 in Idaho. So it must have been the eyes when they were distributing funds for studies. But we've participated, we're working with the feds closely on the local road safety plan. And so we're hopefully nearing the completion of that. And so my recollection of the plan is that it looks at everything in DuPage County on the local system. So basically excludes the state and tollway system. So, when that gets completed, maybe that's something that, we can share with the group, the kind of data that came out of that, and how some of it's, easy to predict and look at corridors, and how sometimes the data it may not be what you thought. So, but I think that might be something beneficial, and I can offer staff to, at some point, to either present to this group if it's worthwhile, or certainly the resource group to share a local road safety plan. The intent was these plans would be templates for any county to undertake. And so we're working closely with FHWA to kind of not only address DuPage County, but also make it useful for other agencies, given the available resources. And this has been about a 1.5 to 2 year study. So it does take a while, a lot of data to go through.
And if I,
Aaron, yeah.
Chris, I think that would be really great, because I think what I was thinking about too is it is all well and good to have IDOT come and talk about their HSIP plan, but a lot of that work is really important baseline work that can sort of drive how they spend their money on their roads. But I don't want to neglect the fact that half of these fatalities occur on local roads in our region where we have control. The collective we, I will say, have control of that. And so I think too, as we look to what we want to do and what sort of policy focus the Transportation Committee, the MPO Policy Committee wants to have with some of the funds that we will be receiving or pursuing in this region, I'd say, having a joint collaborative effort on something that's local could be something that would be really helpful here too for us to think about.
Yep, agree.
Can I throw something there also? For the Village of Flossmoor local road safety plan, we're not only looking at local roads, we're also including the county routes and state routes. And so the steering committee that we have put together for that plan includes both representatives from Cook County and also Idot, along with advocacy groups in the village and village staff and the village police department. So it's really taking into account the entire village, not only local streets. So it's a very collaborative effort that we've put together so far.
Great. Okay, are there any other questions? All right, well, thank you, Todd. Appreciate it. We'll move on to, oh, we got I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So with that, questions, I will now entertain a motion to approve the 2022 highway safety targets for recommendation to MPO policy and board.
Tom Rickert moves.
Thank you, Tom. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Who seconded that? I didn't see.
No chauffeur.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Okay, we addressed comments earlier, so I will ask Kama to do a roll call.
Thank you, Chris. Chuck Abraham.
Aye.
Kevin Carrier.
Aye.
David Kralik.
Aye.
Leah Mooney, who has stepped in for Mike Connolly.
Aye.
Doug Ferguson.
Aye.
Jessica Hector Sue.
Aye.
John Paul Deepa.
Aye.
Tom Kelso. Jackie Forbes.
Aye.
Christina Kukowski.
Yes.
Eric Llewellyn.
Aye.
Chris Hebert.
Aye.
Eva De Laurentiis.
Aye.
Jessica Ortega.
Aye.
Heidi Prasad. Heidi Prasad. Tom Rickert.
Aye.
Mayor Rockingham. Joe Schofer.
Aye.
Chris Snyder.
Aye.
Audrey Winnick.
Aye.
Rocco Zucchero.
Patiently waiting, aye.
And just confirm for those listening that Tom Kelso did vote aye in the chat.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. The motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item 8, legislative update. There really is no formal update that I understand, but Cmap staff is available if anyone has any questions, whether federal or state. Okay. All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 9, other business. So is there any other matters to be brought to the committee from our members?
Yes.
Jessica.
Joe Schofer here. I just want to cycle back to the discussion of IJA, the new law, and particularly the PROTECT program. As you move forward and think about developing a resilience plan, you might look at a just released Transportation Research Board special report number 340, which is titled Investing in Transportation Resilience, a Framework for Informed Choices. This was a congressionally mandated study. I happen to chair the study committee, and it's got some useful information in it. And if you find it valuable, I'd be glad to work with you to dig into this a little bit more.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. I know Cmap is working on a resiliency climate change initiative, and so I know we have they are meeting with counties and others on these topics. So the timing and the release of this is ideal. Thanks, Joe.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other items to be brought before the committee? Jessica, you had raised your hand earlier. Yeah.
I did, yes, thank you. 2 things that I wanted to announce or remind everybody about. The first is that RTA's strategic plan process continues. We are still in our listening season right now. So please, if you have not already, take our survey and let us know your thoughts. Also, let us know if there are groups that you're a part of that you'd like to have us come share a workshop. We can do a workshop and hear the thoughts of that group. We're really trying to invite a lot of new people to the table and also make sure that we're amplifying voices within our stakeholder groups that we've heard before maybe, but not everybody's heard. So please let us know if there are ways to hear more from people during that process. We're also planning a stakeholder workshop in January. Save the date will go out for that today, and many of you will receive that, or your organizations will receive that. So please do plan to attend that and engage in that process, as we really are earnestly listening to people and using the input we receive to shape the direction of the plan that we'll be working on next year with all of you. The second one is that the regional transit budget was adopted yesterday by the RTA board. There were a number of significant activities that went into that, as always, but especially this year. And there will be a budget amendment next year to reflect the new federal funding for capital and to reflect the allocations of the most recent federal relief dollars that were allocated this year. But I specifically want to point out some changes in the capital program. We have really been working hard over the last couple of years to connect the long range plan with a 10-year plan with the capital program and with program delivery. And we presented the capital program in terms of our strategic goals and core requirements last year and made a connection between what's in the capital program and the priority projects that we put forth during Invest in Transit. And we have now released a portion of the RTAM's website that allows people to do that and look at it themselves. So I strongly recommend that you go look at it. It isn't flashy, I'm going to be honest, it isn't flashy, but it's really exciting because it actually makes a really excellent connection, to Audrey's point earlier, between what the service boards are delivering on, what they've programmed, and what we say our regional priorities are. And you can see very quickly that those two things are very aligned. There's also a downloadable data set there, so folks who are really interested in kind of looking at the program themselves can download it and take a look at it. So I wanted to bring that to your attention just to kind of continue to share with you the things that we're doing in capital programming. So I'd be happy to follow up with anyone who has questions about those things, but I wanted to make sure that you all knew about them. So thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Jessica. Is it possible, because I never know who's on the mailing list for the workshop you mentioned in January, things do trickle down, but is it possible for you to send an invite to everybody on this committee for that workshop? It may go to our county board office and things like that, to chairman, but a copy to those of us on this call, that would be appreciated.
Sure, yeah, Chris, I'll do that.
Thanks. Okay, any other business?
Hey, if I can, really quick.
Nope,
hey,
sorry,
I just wanted to make. Can you hear me? No?
No, I think you're muted. Go ahead, Rocco, you're fine.
Hey, I just want to make sure this is not about. I know you're fine too, Chris. You are fine. I want to make sure that I acknowledge and make sure everybody's aware. I don't know if Eric was going to say anything from PACE, but we're losing one of our agency heads from PACE, Rocky Donahue. I got to call him out because he's the only other person with kind of a name like mine, the industry. But he's stepping aside at the end of the year. I'm sure you've all heard or aware. But I had a chance to talk to Rocky the other day. I just wanted to just to thank him for his service. But I want to publicly compliment him for what he did. He spent 40 years in the industry. That is not an easy thing. Of all of us, our public servants, we wear a target on our back and we play the game of chutes and ladders. And unfortunately, it's loaded with chutes, not many ladders. But Rocky was able to find a few of those chutes, and he made a lot of traction down in Springfield. Again, it's just not easy, But when I talked to him, he said two things. Or I heard two compliments about him. I thought really telling about what it takes to stick around in the public service. Very, very simple things, but true to what he did and did well. And I think it's something that we all need to keep in mind is that he always picked up his phone and he always was willing to help people. So I thought that was really interesting. The compliments I heard most about him were those two very simple things. And we all see our phones ringing like, oh boy. And you don't know who's going to be on the other end or what the issue is going to be. And nobody's ever calling to say thanks or hey, great job. You know, it's always something, but you know, it is a testament that anybody who's willing to pick up the phone and try to help solve an issue and help out where they can. So yeah, I thought those were interesting compliments. I want to make sure that you know, at least called out Rocky for his 40 years of service. So anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Rocco. I know Pace was at our board last week and presenting their budget, but we did have a recognition for Rocky's service, and they, you know, he spent his entire career at Pace. I did not know that. I've known him only at Pace, but 40 years at Pace. That's a long time to be committed to a single agency. So take it from someone who's been at 4 myself. So so thank you. Any other business? You guys are making this my longest last meeting. All right, we'll move on to public comment. I don't know if we had any public comments pre-sent to us, Doug or Kama?
We did not receive any in advance. If anybody in attendance would like to make a public comment to the committee, please use the raise hand function or send a chat to staff here.
Give a moment for that. Anybody raising their hand, Doug, Kama? None?
Nope.
All right. Now we'll move on to our next meeting. So the next meeting will be February 25th next year, 2022. And with that, I do want to wish everybody on this call and in the audience a very happy, healthy holiday season and new year. And with that, seeing no other business for the committee, I will adjourn this meeting. Well, there you have it. I adjourned it.
All right.